Okay, it's 3:59 and a half. Uh-oh. We have echo. Chris, it's a good thing we have a half a minute. It's maybe your computer, Jenny. You have to love technology. Think we fixed it? Okay. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is moved by Susan and seconded by Danny that Fran Smith act as chair for the July 13th, 2023 meeting. Philip is away today. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. First of all, I'd like to ask everyone to turn off their cell phones so that we don't get interrupted. And we have an approval of the agenda. Oh, sorry. Yes, I did. Opening remarks first. First of all, we're having a hybrid session. So there's people joining us by Zoom call and public that can join us as well. For those of you who may be new to the Committee of Adjustment, I'm Frances Smith, the chair of the committee. We also have Susan Irwin, Dan Meeks, Bill Everett, Cindy Kelsey, Duncan McGregor, Lynn Klages, our planner, Jenny Capusta, and you all know Crystal because you've been dealing with her, Cindy Diekman over there, and behind the screen is Chris Nelson, our techie fellow. And so that's all of us. Cindy will be assisting as the meeting host, and we'll have other planning staff if need be. The format of the meeting will be to follow the agenda posted online. Staff have also prepared presentations for everyone to follow along during the meeting, and you can see it on the big screen back there. For each application within a public meeting, the format will be, I will introduce the file so that everyone knows where we are on the agenda. The planner will provide an overview of the application. Then we'll ask if there's any comments from the applicant or their agent. Committee members may then ask staff and the applicant or agent any questions if they have any. The public will then have an opportunity to ask any questions or provide comments. And I would encourage you here, or if you're on with us virtually, to please raise your hand and we'll get your questions answered. The committee will then deliberate and vote on the application. Voting will take place as members raise their hand or verbal confirmation if attending online. We have no one online from the committee. So then I'll state whether the vote was carried or defeated. All members of the public will have an opportunity to provide comment on the new applications. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the meeting or written submissions to the Township of Central Frontenac before a decision is made, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. Please note that as of January 1st, 2023, only persons specified in the Act are permitted to appeal consent and minor variance applications. Township staff will be in touch following the meeting and will be forwarding a copy of the decision within 15 days to the applicant and anyone who has requested to be notified. Should you have any questions after the meeting, we encourage you to reach out to staff. The applicant, the minister, or any prescribed public body who has an interest in the matter may, within 20 days of making the decision or date of notice of appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal against the decision of the committee, by filing with the Secretary Treasurer of the committee a notice of appeal to the tribunal. I will now ask Cindy to provide an overview of how members attending virtually can participate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once the meeting is open to the public, the chair will ask if anyone has any questions or comments. Members of the public who are attending virtually will be asked to use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. This alerts us that you would like to speak. Staff will then notify the chair that someone wishes to speak, and we will proceed to unmute your microphone. You should receive a notification that your microphone has been unmuted. Please just wait a moment after unmuting before speaking. If anyone is calling in by phone, you can use the *9 feature when you want to raise your hand during the meeting. You will hear a prompt on the phone that you have raised your hand, and you will be notified when your microphone has been unmuted. This afternoon, it looks like we have 3 folks attending virtually and a number in person.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. It's not likely, but if the connection is broken and the meeting can't be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting would be postponed and staff will be in touch with each applicant. And a notice will be posted on the township social media, letting you know when the meeting would be rescheduled. Okay, but we're going to trust that there's no thunderstorms or power outages and we'll be good to go. I think the thunderstorms have passed. All right, our first item is moved by Danny Meeks, seconded by Susan Irwin, that the agenda be adopted as, are there any amendments to the agenda? So as presented, all those in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure, pecuniary interest in general nature thereof of any item on tonight's agenda by any member of the committee? Cindy? Okay. Anyone else? Dan?
Item number 8052388 minor variance work related.
Okay. We'll note that in the minutes. And we'll give copies to Crystal. All right, approval of the minutes, moved by Susan and seconded by Danny, that the minutes of the June 8th, 2023 be adopted as presented. Are there any amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, so as presented. All those in favor? Carried. No deferred items. Our first is applications for consent, and it's B723 Kennebec for a lot addition.
The applicants are here. Henry and Linda, if you want to come up to here to this table.
Okay. Just in case there's a question, you push the button on your right and the red light will come on and then you'll be able to speak into it. So what I'll do is I'll read the motion and then we'll ask if there's any questions. Oh, sorry, Jenny. Yes, you go ahead. I want to get to the motions. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As noted, this is an application for a lot addition for a property with frontage on Blueberry Road, which is partially township owned and partially privately owned. This is in the geographic township of Kennebec. The lot addition parcel will have approximately 64 meters of frontage on Blueberry Road and an area of, it's not 0.8 hectares, not a 2 acre. It's supposed to be a lot smaller than that. Sorry. It's 0.11. Yes, that's a copy and paste error. I apologize for that. You will see on the next slide. The report's correct. So the lot addition is currently zoned as rural as part of the subject property. And so the retained parcel will also be zoned rural, with the benefiting lot being an existing undersized waterfront residential zoned property that's only about 0.13 hectares or 0.32 acres in area. So the addition of this property will significantly increase the size of the property. Additionally, the current benefiting lot is a water access only lot. And this lot addition will not only enlarge it, but with the amendments to the conditions should also give it legal road access, which makes it easier for them to access the property. So here on this next slide, you can see the large lot that it is coming from is a large L-shaped sort of parcel. There's wetlands in the southern portion of that retained parcel. The lot addition parcel is this yellow hatched area. It's a triangle. So all of the other waterfront properties along Blueberry Road touch Blueberry Road. For some reason, this property, when it was put in, did not actually touch Blueberry Road. So the application is to add the portion between the rear lot line and Blueberry Road, which will, as I noted, enlarge this parcel. And additionally, the application will include the creation of a right-of-way, and we'll describe that a bit later, because the existing parcel has right-of-way over this. As I said, Blueberry Road is partially township owned and partially privately owned, where it bisects this property, and on this map, it's entirely privately owned. So in order to get access, it's not just a matter of having it touch it, it's that we need to make sure that the right-of-way is registered on title of both the severed and retained, as well as the benefiting lots in the appropriate way. So this was not circulated for review by the Conservation Authority, as both the benefiting lot and the existing lot are vacant. So there's no septic systems or nothing concerned from that point of view. It was circulated for review by Quinte Conservation Authority, as we are enlarging a waterfront lot and it's got wetlands on the retained. Quinte Conservation actually requested deferral of this application until there was a survey sketch completed to show a suitable development area on the benefiting lot. As they noted, there was some concerns with the elevation of the property and the mapped floodplain and elevation for the lake. Planning staff are not recommending deferral of this application, however, as this is a lot addition to an existing lot. That existing lot could be developed at any point without any additional planning approvals, unless it needed relief from the setback to water body or side yard, things like that. We're not creating this lot, so planning staff was of the opinion that proving that the lot was developable with this lot addition was not a requirement to approve this, as this is a lot that already exists and could be developed today even without that. If they're going to develop it and they need relief at that point, they could come in for a variance, but at this point, there is no development proposed on either parcel, so it didn't make sense to go through that extra step of proving that there was a development envelope when there's nothing proposed and there's no intent of the applicants in any near future to do anything on this property other than use it as really a water access point for themselves to enjoy the lake. There were no public comments received with regards to this application. So as I noted, planning staff are recommending approval of this application as submitted, subject to conditions in the planning report, plus a slight amendment that was raised after discussions and review with township staff. So survey or legal description of the lot addition parcel is a requirement, and together with a right of way. So as I noted, there's parts of the road that are privately owned and parts that aren't. So the benefiting parcel currently is water access. In order to do proper access, it'll be a bit of an interesting legal wording, some instrument numbers in there. I won't go into all of the details here, but it's parts of one part that the current parcel it's coming from has a right of way over. So we're going to recommend you transfer that right of way, as well as a new easement over the parts that they don't own, to make sure that you can get from the township road to the new lot through the lot addition, make everything all legal and access, and then it doesn't have to be that water access lot, which was the intent of this application. It just wasn't formally stated initially, but there is an easement that can be transferred with that initial parcel. Additionally, any outstanding taxes be paid, certificate of official signed within 2 years. And planning staff are also recommending a rezoning of that lot addition parcel from rural to residential waterfront. So that way the waterfront parcel has consistent zoning throughout.
Okay. Do the applicants have anything to add to that or any questions? We're
Not yet.
not yet, but as soon as I get to read this motion, then I can tell you whether or not that's the case. Is there anyone from the public who has a question or a comment on this application? Is there anyone online?
If there's anyone online wishing to speak, please use the raise hand feature. I see no one, Madam Chair.
Okay, now we're going to read the motion and then vote on it. Oh, sorry, committee, yes. Everybody was shaking their heads, so I wasn't. Any questions or comments? None? Okay. You can also ask after I read the motion. That's typically how we do it. All right, moved by Bill and seconded by Cindy, that consent application B0823 Kennebec Hong and Yin for the property located at part of lot 17, concession 3, geographic township of Kennebec for a 0.11 hectare, 0.27 acres parcel as a lot addition be approved, subject to the conditions noted in the planning report, with the following amendments. Lot addition may include existing TW easement together with Okay, easement, FR 554254, plus a new easement over existing private lane within retained lands, that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of decision shall be completed and the certificate of official issued within a period of 2 years after the notice of decision was issued as required by the Planning Act. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Now it's approved. You've got 15 days.
I'll send you all the paperwork out tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay,
I didn't waste more time.
not a problem. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, you're done.
Okay, next we have B 1423 Olden Cardle lot addition. Is there anyone here for this lot addition? If there is, come up to the table. No? All right. Jenny. Oh, Dimitri. I didn't know Dimitri was with us.
Yeah, hi, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm virtually today.
Okay, you're on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Just for the benefit of everybody in attendance today, my name is Dimitri, and I'm one of the planners at the County of Frontenac. Application B 1423 OL proposes a lot addition severance of an area of approximately 0.10 hectares, or just about a quarter of an acre, from a property located at part lot 27 and part lot 26, concession 2 in the geographic township of Olden, right on the shoreline of Hungry Lake. So these properties don't have municipal addresses associated with them. They're all accessed by an existing private right-of-way and a driveway, which appears to be owned by the same family throughout. So legal description is the best we're going to get as far as addressing. The purpose of the lot addition is primarily to fix an encroachment of a driveway that provides access to the benefiting lot across the retained parcel. If this lot addition is essentially not approved, there is the potential that in the future, the benefiting lot will lose access to their property and they will need to construct a new driveway. The benefiting lot that this lot addition is going to be added to is about 4.5 hectares or 11.15 acres in size. It's got about 277 meters or about 911 feet of frontage along Hungry Lake. And the retained parcel after this lot addition is severed off will have about 413 meters of frontage along Hungry Lake and be approximately 5.7 hectares or 14.1 acres in area. All of these parcels are located within the waterfront area designation. They are also overlaid with 2 constraint layers, one being the area of natural and scientific interest, also known as an ANSI, and the other one being organic soils, which identifies the location of unstable soils that are not suitable for development. The zoning of the property, so for the proposed severed parcel as well as the retained parcel, they are both zoned environmental protection with an environmental protection constraint overlay, or EP1. The benefiting lot is zoned waterfront residential exception to zone 35 or WX35. This is a site-specific zone that governed various legal agreements for the development of the lands back in the, I believe it was in the early 2000s. All of these are also subject to the environmental protection constraint overlay known as EP1, and this typically signifies the presence of organic soils that kind of aligns with the OP designations for the organic soils overlay. All of these properties are subject to organic soils. They're within flood areas, and they also contain wetlands. There are no wetlands on the severed parcel, though. I will mention that. The severed parcel contains a driveway, and it's also developed with 2 accessory structures. The benefiting lot and the retained parcel are both developed with waterfront residential uses. So this is the proposed application here. The severance, the lot addition severance is highlighted in green. The retained parcel is to the left or the west. It's in red, and the benefiting parcel is in orange. So the orange parcel and the green parcel will merge to form one lot. And as I mentioned before, the purpose of this is to get the driveway that encroaches on the retained parcel onto the benefiting lot. We did not circulate this application to the septic approval authority because the severance is not going to have any influence or impact on the existing sewage disposal systems on either property. And we also circulated to the Quinte Conservation Authority, given its the severance's proximity to the water body, as well as its location within unstable soils, well, natural hazards really, which is the mandate of the QCA. No comments have been received at this time from the QCA. However, we are recommending a condition that would require the applicant to submit favorable comments from the QCA prior to the issuance of the certificate of official. Either way, there is no new development that's being proposed in this application. We're just recognizing existing conditions and making sure that the benefiting parcel does not become a waterfront access only lot in the future. We didn't receive any public comments as at the time of drafting the report, and planning staff are recommending approval of this application with conditions. Conditions being that the lot addition parcel can only be added to the benefiting lands and nowhere else, that any outstanding municipal taxes are paid, that the lot addition is surveyed and a certificate of official is obtained in 2 years. And if there are any abandoned wells within the proposed severance area, that they're sealed in accordance with MECP requirements. One other thing I will mention is that the situation that we're creating through the severance, as far as zoning goes, the severed parcel and the benefiting parcel will have different zoning on it. So the benefiting parcel will be the 35 exception zone of the waterfront residential, whereas the severance is going to be the environmental protection zone. Normally, we would, when there is a lot addition, we want to make sure that we amend the zoning bylaw for the severed parcel so that there's no discrepancy between the zoning of the lot that the severance is being added to, and we don't create a dual zoning type of situation. However, in this case, a dual zone does make sense because the EP zone basically states that if any new development is proposed, it needs to come with supporting studies to ensure that the soil conditions are stable and that future development can be supported without any issues with respect to having an impact on human health. And in this case, that's not what's happening as a result of this application. So the land is not being cleared for development. So we are recommending to maintain the EP zoning of this severed lot, resulting in a situation where the zone between the benefiting parcel and the severance parcel is going to be different. But from a technical standpoint, as I had mentioned, it makes sense. That concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions that you have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant with us online or in person? And do they wish to make any comments?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
My name's Debbie Bellinger. I'm a lawyer with Nelligan Law in Ottawa, appearing on behalf of Donald and Dan Cardale, the applicants.
Yes.
And we're happy to answer any questions. There is no development proposed or intended. We acknowledge the conditions to be imposed, including getting positive feedback from the Conservation Authority prior to the sign off by the official. We will also agree to, I think it would be proper that the parcels be consolidated as one in the parcel register. There's to confirm that it's all one parcel of land at the end of the day. That hasn't been imposed as a condition, but it would be our intention. And I don't believe the dual zoning would prevent us from that. Doing that, the quality of the title on both sides of the lot line is the same. So we should be able to do that in addition to the conditions that have been imposed.
Okay, thank you. Any member of the public have a comment or question for the applicants? Okay, any member of the committee have a question or comment? I don't see any questions or comments coming, so I will read the motion. Moved by Cindy Kelsey, seconded by Bill Everett, that consent application B 1423 OL Cardill for the property located at part of lot 26 and part of lot 27, concession 2, part 1 and registered plan 13R 13177, geographic township of Olden, for a 0.10 hectare, 0.25 acre parcel as a lot addition be approved, subject to the conditions noted in the planning report, that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of decision shall be completed and the certificate of official issued within a period of 2 years after the notice of decision was issued as required by the Planning Act. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. All right. That is done. Thank you very much.
You.
Who went, hey?
Okay. Next, we have B 1723 Hinchinbrook 1856028 Ontario Limited. Is the applicant here? Or the agent? Here he is. Okay, welcome. And your name? Sean Cooper. Okay. Jenny.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you noted, this is an application for the creation of a new lot in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook with frontage on Fifth Lake Road. The proposed new lot will have about 76 meters to 250 feet of frontage on Fifth Lake Road and an area of 2 hectares or about 5 acres. Both the severed and retained are currently zoned rural and designated rural, and there's no change recommended there. The retained parcel will have about 764 meters of frontage on Fifth Lake Road, be about 45 hectares or just over 100 acres in area. There's some wetlands and a water course on the retained parcel, but there's nothing of note on the severed parcel. Here on this next slide, you can see on the map, their subject property is outlined in red. There's been a couple of other severances from it, but that was well in excess of the severance date of 2008. So the proposed lot is here at the western end of the property, shown in yellow hatching. There is a wetland and water course along the rear of the property, but none of that goes into the proposed lot. This application was circulated for review by both Septic Approval and County Conservation Authority. So the Septic Approval Authority had no objections as submitted. The site is flexible for siting a septic system. Basically, you get to put your septic where you want, lots of choice there. County Conservation Authority said they had no objections as submitted. They did do a site visit on May 16th of this year. And one thing they did note is the driveway on the retained parcel does have culverts crossing that wetland and water course that should have had permits issued by their office, and wanted to note that that cannot be expanded or changed, altered without prior conversations with them. Also, they noted the presence, as I said, the wetlands and water course on the retained property, but had no concerns with natural hazards or natural heritage, anything like that on the proposed severed parcel. There were no public comments received with regards to this application. Planning staff are recommending that the committee hear any comments today, if there are any, and approve this application subject to the conditions in the planning report. Standard conditions including legal description or survey of the lot, payment of outstanding taxes, certificate of official signed within 2 years, 5% parkland fee, and a road widening along the frontage of the severed parcel, just as the width of that right of way is slightly less than the 20 meters required by the official plan. So there may be a small portion that gets dedicated as part of the application.
Okay. Any questions from the applicant or comments? Just push the button, Sean, till the red light comes on. Yeah, push it there. Okay.
What does the road widening entail? Does that affect me at all as a owner?
Thank you. No, it's more just when the lot gets surveyed, we have the surveyor confirm the distance from the center line of the traveled portion, just to make sure that that right of way is the 20 meters that is set out as required in case there is anything. Some of the rights of way in the township are between 15 to 20 meters. So where it's a little bit less, we measure that out. And if it's less than the 10 meters on the one side versus the other, then you may need a sliver of a slightly different, an additional section, and that all takes place during the same transfer. It won't affect any of this. It's a standard thing just to make sure we have space for upgrades if needed in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who has a comment or a question? Is there anyone online?
If there's anyone online wishing to speak, please use the raise hand feature. I see none, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any member of the committee with a question or comment? Okay, seeing none, let's read the motion. Moved by Lynn Clickus, seconded by Duncan McGregor, that consent application B1723 Hinchinbrook 1856028 Ontario Limited, or the property located at part of lot 18 concession 10 geographic township of Hinchinbrook for a 2 hectare 5 acre parcel as a new lot be approved subject to the conditions noted in the planning report, that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of decision shall be completed and the certificate of official issued within a period of 2 years after the notice of decision was issued as required by the Planning Act. Any further discussion? Comments? All those in favor? Motion's carried. So Crystal will be in touch and go from there. Thank you. All right. B 2023 OS Jones and Gadu easement. Is the applicant here for that one? No? Jenny, do you want to go ahead, or is it Dimitri?
No, that is correct. That's me this time. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for the creation of an easement or right of way for water access and parking for an existing developed island property in Sherbet, or not Sherbet Lake, in Eagle Lake. Sorry, Sherbet Lake. But I have Eagle Lake. Anyway, Sherbet Lake. Sorry, I have it as Eagle Lake, but that's a different one. Proposed right of way will be 20 meters wide, 66 feet. Both on road and water frontage. Area is approximately 0.12 hectares, or about a third of an acre. Properties designated as rural, but located within that waterfront district and zoned as residential waterfront. As I noted, the benefiting lot is an island property. However, at this point, planning staff are recommending deferrals. There's some challenges with comments from conservation. Here, I will move on to the next one. You can see, so it's an existing property that has frontage on Wagner Road and on the lake. And the proposed right of way is to be along the north portion of the subject property. The applicants had pre-consulted with the Conservation Authority. However, when the formal circulation took place, it was determined that the pre-application was actually comments on the wrong property entirely. Property on the other side of the lake, actually, and not this one. And according to Conservation Authority, this entire property is actually mapped as a wetland in their system. So they would like to conduct a site visit to determine the extent of the wetlands and if it's feasible to place this driveway and parking area as proposed by the applicants. So we have circulated and had some correspondence, but until those comments have been received and the wetlands have been mapped, it's not possible to determine if this is an appropriate use of this land. So this was not circulated for septic approval as the property is vacant. So there's no issues with interactions with septic systems, but planning staff are recommending deferral of this application until the comments have been received from the Conservation Authority.
Are the applicants here? Okay. Is there anyone online that would wish to speak to this?
If there's anyone wishing to speak online, please use the raise hand feature. I see no one.
Okay, any member of council with any questions or comments? Susan?
Just a point of clarification, I don't have a problem with the deferral. The retained parcel, is that owned by the applicant?
Yes, the entire property is owned by the applicants, and they're looking to give themselves a right of way over this parcel to access, use as parking and access for the island.
Okay, and I'm assuming that would be, since they own the land,
Mhm.
that they want an easement in case they ever want to convey the ownership of the island?
I believe that is the case to ensure that what their current situation that they do use is a legal situation going forward. Yes.
Right. Thank you. I just wanted to understand that. Thank you.
And obviously, they don't feel that it's all wetland.
That is my understanding. It was not showing up as wetland mapped in our system, but it did show up on MVCA's as a wetland. So they have different mapping, and ours is not always as accurate as the conservation authorities.
So this will come back to the next committee meeting, as far as we know.
Provided we have comments confirming that this is suitable, I would say yes, but
NVCA has been on site since.
Okay, good. All right, so it's a temporary delay. All right, I have a motion moved by Duncan McGregor, second by Lynn Clegg, that consent application B 2023 OS Jones and Gadot for the property located at Part Lot 9, Concession 2, Part 4, Geographic Township of Oso for a 0.12 hectare, 0.30 acre parcel as an easement be deferred until Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority comments, that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of decision shall be completed and the certificate of official issued within a period of 2 years after the notice of decision was issued as required by the Planning Act. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Questions? Duncan, go ahead.
So we're creating a new lot here, correct? Just creating a right of way?
This is just to create the
Just-
right of way.
Just create a
Yes.
right of way. Okay.
But this motion is for deferral to bring it back to the table.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to know why there was no septic consultation if we were creating a new lot.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're voting on the deferral motion. All those in favor? Carried. All right. Deferred. All right. Now we are at consents and minor variances. B 1923 Kennebuck, Kashik and Pukan, maybe creation of a new lot. And I'm sorry if I pronounced those really wrong.
Minor variance is gonna go with it. B1.
Oh, and A 0923 is going to go with that as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And who's doing this one?
That would be me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so this is a combined concurrent application for consent and minor variance. So the consent application is to create a new lot with road frontage of 21.94 meters or 72 feet and an area of 0.13 hectares or 0.32 of an acre. The retained parcel in this case will be about 0.26 of a hectare, about just over half an acre, and have about 20.46 or 67 feet of frontage on Baker Valley Road. The committee may notice those are significantly less than the regular size of lots that we would be creating. In this case, this is why there is also a concurrent minor variance submitted to recognize the deficiencies in lot area and frontage for both severed and retained parcels, as well as a reduction in interior side yard for an existing dwelling on the retained parcel. So this is an interesting situation where these are two lots that would be undersized compared to today, that were purchased by the same owner. And because the lots are side by side and touch each other, they became one big lot that now has two houses and lots of things all on there. So if you look at this next picture, you can see the retained parcel is the one in red. It's a slightly odd shape. It's part of an old subdivision before it was a subdivision. So these weren't done through consent. So when abutting lots come into the same ownership, they automatically merge on title. That was not the intent of the purchasers. They were intending to keep them separately. And so what they're applying for is to redivide them on the same area and boundaries that they were originally surveyed and divided upon. So we did not circulate this one for septic approval, as both severed and retained contain existing dwellings and existing on-site services. They were both independent lots that had dwellings and services and have functioned that way for a number of years. The only reason they are one lot today is that it was a merger on title through common ownership. As there were no natural heritage or natural hazard features identified on either severed or retained, and it is not a waterfront property. There was no comments required from the Conservation Authority, and there were no comments received from the public. One of the conditions that were discovered during the pre-app is that the dwellings are very close to the lot lines, and planning staff did require that confirmation of the existing dwellings not being across property lines, similar servicing. So the applicant did obtain a survey sketch, which you can see here on the screen, that does confirm, while it is very close. In fact, there's some eaves overhang, but the property, the existing dwelling is entirely on its own part. And was there when this was applied for. As I said, we've redividing along existing lot lines. Basically, there's no new development proposed at this time. And because each structure and services is on its own property, planning staff are the opinion that supporting that reduction to the 0.2 of a meter, which is generally well under what would be supported, is considered minor and appropriate, as they were existing standalone service lots prior to this merger, and had the legal title been put through in a different way, they would continue to have been existing lots. So in this case, it is the opinion of planning staff that this is an appropriate reduction despite the small number. So planning staff are recommending approval of this application, subject to any comments that are heard today and subject to the conditions in the planning report, including survey of the lots, paying of outstanding taxes, certificate of official signed, and the 5% parkland fee.
Okay, pretty straightforward situation. Are the owners with us and like to come to the table or online?
Just a moment, I'll move you over.
Okay, would you like to add anything?
Good afternoon. My name is Utkarsh Saroha. I'm appearing on behalf of the owners, Kush Kaushik and Sadeshna Pukkan. And I would just like to thank the committee, the planning staff, and the city officials for their help with this. And nothing more to add. Jenny summed it up perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this? Any member of the committee with questions or comments? Duncan?
So if we divide the lots again, and this, excuse my naiveness, but if we divide the lots again and we need to do a septic on one of the properties 5 years down the road, are they going to be able to do that with the smaller lot size?
That is an excellent question. That is something they would have to determine at that time. As I said, they each do currently have independent services. Most likely they would have to excavate, rehab, and reinstall them on the same footprint in the same location as the existing systems. I highly doubt there would be space for an additional one. A lot of times you would decommission and then install in a separate location. This would be a case where they'd most likely would have to remove and reinstall in the same location. Could they expand it? Probably not, but the dwellings are small, and they do have services that meet their needs at this point.
At that particular point too, if nothing could work that's new on the market for a smaller space, it would have to go to a holding tank situation. But again, the septic inspection people would be the people who would say what would be accommodating. Yep.
So I think it'd be in this report, we skipped the septic or the septic authorities comments. And I just wonder why we did that. If that's a potential concern, why are those comments not in the report?
Yeah, excellent. In this case, when there's existing services and we're looking at dividing along lot lines, the concern primarily is making sure that none of those services are across the property lines and that they meet setbacks. The information provided confirmed that those setbacks had been met based on the existing lot lines. And that was through the permits that they had obtained for the installation of those services. So there wasn't a concern with regards to suitability or upgrades, as there was no new development proposed. It was more confirming the locations of them, similar to confirming the locations of the dwelling. And that's a common thing. If they were looking to enlarge the dwelling or make any changes to those systems, we absolutely would have required that performance review in their comments.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will read the motion. Moved by Lynn and seconded by Duncan. The consent application B1923 Kennebec for the property located at part of lot 15, concession 8, geographic township of Kennebec for a 0.13 hectare, 0.32 acre parcel as a new lot that has merged on title be approved, subject to the conditions noted in the planning report. That the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of decision shall be completed and the certificate of official issued within a period of 2 years after the notice of decision was issued, as required by the Planning Act. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Right. Next is, there's two of those, right? Or is it all in
Yeah,
one?
there's two.
Okay, same application, only this part is the minor variance part. Okay, moved by Duncan and seconded by Lynn. In making the decision upon this application, the committee considered whether or not the minor variance requested was minor and desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure, and that their general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan will be maintained, or in the case of a change in the use of property which is lawfully non-conforming under the bylaw, as to whether or not the application has met the requirements of subsection 45.2 of the Municipal Act, concur in the following decisions and reasons for decision. That minor variance application A0923, property located at part lot 20, concession 10 in the geographic township of Kennebec, 1353 Baker Valley Road, to allow for an undersized lot that merged on title and to allow for a reduced side yard setback from 3 meters to 0.2 meters for the existing dwelling be approved, subject to the conditions and reasons noted in the planning report, and that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. That's a very small number when you look at next to being on the line. All right, now we are at minor variance application A0523 Basra minor variance. And applicant's agent, do you want to come to the table just in case there's questions or comments? Jenny, is this one yours too?
This is, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is an application for minor variance to permit the construction of a new dwelling and the installation of a septic system on an existing vacant lot of record with frontage on Shibley Road in the geographic township of Oso. Has also frontage on Charbet Lake on the East Basin. So as you can see on the screen, this is the sketch submitted with the application, not to scale, however, the numbers are correct. There's a large portion of wetland that encompasses a big section of the western side of the property. In fact, it kind of wraps around from the lake all the way back to Shibley Road. That limits the development area for this property to the western side of the property. So both the house and the septic system are proposed to be greater than 30 meters from the high water mark of Charbet Lake. However, the wetlands and the topography on the property limit the opportunity for both the house and septic system to meet the 30-meter setback from the wetland. So the dwelling is proposed to have a 22-meter setback from the wetland and the septic system a 16-meter setback. Planning staff would like to note that in conversations with the applicant and noted on the application form, The 16 meters for that septic system is the absolute minimum setback that is to be achieved. The applicants have worked with a qualified septic installer and designer to determine the appropriate location and size for this system and provided details on that. It is likely that they are going to be able to achieve a greater setback than 16 meters. However, until the construction can begin, that isn't going to be sure as to exactly how far, but they can guarantee at least that 16-meter setback. So that's what was applied for, with the understanding that they are going to work to do what they can to maximize that setback to the greatest extent possible. Additionally, there's a variance requested to increase in height for the house from 10 meters to 12 meters. And a further variance to an increase in footprint from 235 square meters to 370 square meters for an area within 60 meters of the high water mark of Sharbet Lake. So you're allowed up to a 10% lot coverage to a maximum footprint of 235 square meters for any property within 60 meters of the high water mark of the lake. The development area on this property is only a portion of the frontage of the lake, but even so, taking out the wetland area that is not developable and considering only that portion of the property that is developable within that 60 meters, a 10% footprint would come out to 435 square meters. So this house proposal is within the 10% percentage, but it's over the footprint. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. So the applicants are applying for that increase. Planning staff would like to note that that 370 square meter footprint does include an attached garage, as well as any decks that are proposed to be attached to this building. So it is a larger footprint, but it is everything all as one. There's no detached garage proposed. This will have the garage and the decks. So it does alter the footprint a little bit on that aspect. And the height increase, my understanding, is a design aspect. They like a taller roof, a little bit more space. So that is fine. That is also what they're requesting on this application. Here on this next page, when we overlay the wetlands and some of the air photos, you can see the wetland and the water course that extend along a significant portion of the property here. This area in purple is that area within 60 meters of the high water mark. So you can see that 60 meters gets to here. The septic system is proposed to be about 72 meters back. At that point, the wetland does kind of curve in. So that's why the house is able to achieve a slightly greater setback than the wetlands. This was circulated for review actually by Mississippi Conservation Authority. They visited the property and have marked out where the high water mark is and where the wetland boundaries are. They do not have any objections to this application as submitted. However, they did require some confirmation from the applicant before they would be willing to issue a permit for any of this development, including that the wetland setback is maximized to the greatest extent possible. They require a minimum 15-meter setback from the wetland for any septic and house. So, I mean, they do exceed that 15, but they will be looking for confirmation of that setback being maximized as much as possible for both structures before any permits would be issued for either of these structures. And they will require a permit for both the septic and the house prior to any building permit being issued from the township for either of those. Again, in this case, we didn't get approval from the it was circulated for septic review. I did not think we had because we'd worked with the qualified installer. Comments received then were favorable, confirming that it was approved through the minor variance. Again, I noted that they may be able to reach a setback of greater than 16 meters. But again, that's depending on the soil conditions and the things, they will do what they can on site. There were public comments received regarding this one. More questions regarding the details of the proposal, like exactly how high was the height relief required. Had this been circulated for conservation review, so we did confirm that had, and we provided those comments to this inquiry. Again, they're questioning whether a precedent would be set to reduce the setback for the septic system on other lakefront properties. Legally, minor variances are not precedent setting, so they're all considered on a case by case basis. However, the answer was yes, we have reduced setbacks for septic systems to a minimum of 15 meters, which is in keeping with the building code minimum setback on multiple properties, depending on the situation and the conditions of that property. So instead, comments are they visited the property and marked everything. They do not have objections, but will require conservation permit and a number of conditions they would like to see for this. Again, this is said not circulated for review. Sorry, that was saying they are circulated for review. This is the wrong slide now that I'm reading it, and I'm sorry for that. I'm looking at this. I was like, this is not the right slide I meant to put in. So we'll just not look at that one. This is why I'm getting confused. So we are recommending approval based on the application submitted. I apologize for that incorrect slide there. I've put the wrong one in there. Anyway, so this said, we've got comments. Everyone is in favor. They will need proper permits, and conservation is going to make sure that they meet all of the setbacks and meet the requirements for development, including sediment control measures during construction and other such things as part of their permitting system.
Okay. Mr. Teresic, do you have anything to add on behalf of the applicants? Okay. Is there any member of the public on our call-in who would like to comment or ask questions?
If there's anyone online wishing to speak, please use the raise hand feature. I see no one, Madam Chair.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment or ask questions? Yes, come on up and give us your name and ask your question. Mike, if you could just share that microphone. Yes, okay.
Hi, my name is Janice Sherman. I was the one that submitted the questions. Thank you for your prompt response. I think I've understood everything you said here today correctly. Our major concern, and actually our neighbors as well who can't attend, our major concern was around the septic setback and the fact that it is very close to those wetlands, which have a lot of life in them. And we wanted to understand what the conservation authority or any septic authority had to say about the fact that it was only 16 meters and what that means as far as possible leakage into the wetlands.
Okay, Jenny?
Yes.
Yes, I said, as I noted, that was definitely a concern and is something that we reached out and asked that question of the Conservation Authority. I said the septic, we're looking more at soil suitability, which doesn't necessarily account for the setback. So they have different purviews there. As conservation opinion was they're okay with it at 16 meters. However, they would like proof that that is the maximum setback that can be achieved. So they're going to work with the applicants to make sure that before the conservation permit is issued, that it is proven that they're doing that. They also have required it to be installed at a certain elevation above the wetland. It slopes down. There was a lot more details in the conservation comments than I necessarily included, but definitely that was a concern the Conservation Authority also had. And so they have stated that as part of their permit approval process, they're going to ensure that that is maximized and done in as appropriate situation as possible, given the lot. But the dilemma is, I think sometimes when it's looked at is that the Ontario Building Code actually has a 15-meter setback. So everyone's like, well, we're meeting code, but the township has the increased setback in the hopes to try and encourage that and have that water protection.
And in this case, it sounds like if they can get further back than 16 meters, they will be doing that as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, committee, do you have any questions or comments? I'll read the motion and you get a second chance. Moved by Lynn and seconded by Duncan. In making the decision upon this application, the committee considered whether or not the minor variance requested was minor and desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building or structure, and that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan would be maintained, or in the case of a change in the use of property which is lawfully non-conforming under the bylaw, as to whether or not this application has met the requirements of subsection 45(2) of the Planning Act, concur in the following decision and reasons for decision. That minor variance application A0523 Basra, Agent Terrasic, property located at part of Lot 7, Concession 1 in the geographic township of Oso, Shibley Road, to permit an increase in height from 10 meters to 12 meters, also an increase in lot coverage, and a reduction in setback to a wetland from 30 meters to 22 meters for the dwelling and 30 meters to 16 meters for the septic system be approved, subject to the conditions and reasons noted in the planning report. And that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant or any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. All right. Thank you for coming. Hope we can get back 20 meters. All right. Next, we have A0823 Sursma minor variance. I probably
you can-
didn't
you
say
can come
that
up.
right.
Jean.
Jean is easier.
Well, it's not her last name. it's her-
Okay. And Dimitri is doing this one, I understand.
Madam Chair. So application A08 proposes to expand a legal non-compliant structure under section 45(2) of the Planning Act. The property that's located, the property where this development is located is at 1176 Hummingbird Lane at part lot 13 and part lot 14, concession 6 in the geographic township of Kennebec. This lot has frontage on Bull Lake. However, a majority of it is an inland parcel that's located north of a private lane called Hummingbird. It's also got frontage on a township road called Dentron Road. There's three components to this application. Proposal 1 is to construct a new 6.69 square meter or 72 square foot mudroom addition in line with the eastern wall of the dwelling. There's not going to be any encroachment into the water body setback as a result of this. The applicant is also proposing to expand an existing unenclosed deck that measures about 35.67 square meters by 26.8 square meters or 288 square feet. So the addition is going to be 288 square feet. This will bring the deck 6 feet closer or 1.8 meters closer to the water body, which will reduce the required 30-meter water body setback to 17.9 meters or 59 feet, down from 98. The applicant is also proposing to construct a 10.8 square meter or a 116 square foot deck addition along the west side of the dwelling. That addition will also include a set of stairs for a total footprint of approximately 15 square meters or about 170 square feet. So as I had mentioned, this property is developed just along the shoreline. The entirety of it appears to be naturally vegetated, while at least north of the private lane. The middle of your slide here shows where that dwelling is located. The dwelling itself is a 1.5 story, 125 square meter or about 1,120 square foot dwelling. It's got an attached 380 square foot deck. That's the deck that's proposed to be expanded. And that deck and the dwelling is located 19.8 meters or 65 feet from the estimated high water mark of Bull Lake. The current zoning bylaw requires a minimum setback of 30 meters or 98 feet from the high water mark of Bull Lake. Because this property was developed and this dwelling specifically was developed before this zoning bylaw came into effect, this existing development is grandfathered, also known as legally non-compliant. The property is also developed with an existing class 4 sewage disposal system and a drilled well. The zoning of the property is waterfront, residential waterfront along the shoreline, and then rural on the balance of the lands north of Hummingbird Lane. and accordingly it's designated as waterfront area in the township official plan. So this shows you an overview of the proposed additions. Outlined in black is what's existing. So the large square like feature is the existing existing dwelling. To the left, that is an existing landing that attaches to the laundry room and the basement of the dwelling. The rectangle to the south is the existing deck. The orange square on the right-hand side is going to be the mudroom addition. The rectangle on the bottom or the south side of the screen will be the 6-foot deck expansion. And on the west side of the dwelling or the left side of the screen is going to be the area where that new deck is proposed to be expanded within. And it's going to replace those existing stairs that are located on the left side of the dwelling. So this was provided to us by the applicant, actually a very well done sketch over top of some of the photos. So this shows the west side or the left side of the dwelling. That's the small rectangle that you saw in the previous slide, just to the left. The new deck is going to connect the existing deck and the deck addition down the set of stairs to the landing so that access to this door can be provided. This set of stairs and that set of stairs will also be removed. This photo shows the proposed deck expansion, as well as on this wall here where this window is. That's where the this is a door with a window in it. This is where the proposed mudroom is going to be constructed. The one thing to note here is that the deck expansion, although it is getting closer to the water, it's not really removing any native vegetation because all of this is maintained lawn. The shoreline itself is naturally vegetated, so everything is going to be nicely screened from the inland or the water body itself, the water portion of the water body. So there's no native vegetation that's proposed to be removed to accommodate this addition, which in general is a good thing. We circulated this application to the Quinte Conservation Authority. They had no objection to the application. They did note that because the proposed mudroom addition and deck expansion are located within the Quinte Conservation Authority regulated area, that a work permit will be required from their office for the obtaining of the building permit. We did not circulate this to the Septic Review Authority because the septic system is not going to be impacted from any of these additions. We will sometimes circulate the Conservation Authority, the Septic Review Authority when there is an increase in floor area or usable space within the dwelling, or when there are new plumbing fixtures that are proposed to be added into the dwelling that are going to contribute to flows of sewage. In this case, neither are happening. The addition of the bedroom, the mudroom does not trigger the need for a septic system review. We didn't receive any comments from the public on this application, and we are recommending approval of this application subject to conditions. Conditions being fairly standard, that permission only applies to the proposal considered by this application, that building permits must be obtained prior to construction, that there are no adverse impacts on adjacent properties such as increased runoff. The applicant will also be required to install sediment and erosion control measures, either hay or straw bales or erosion control fencing prior to construction to make sure that no sediment or construction refuse gets into the water body itself, and that if any excavation is required, that excavation material cannot be deposited into the lake or anywhere within 30 meters of the water body. So it will have to be disposed in an appropriate manner, well away from the water body, so as to not impact it. That concludes my presentation. I'll now take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dimitri. Jean, anything to add or comments or questions? Okay, is there anyone online who would like to say something?
If there is anyone online wishing to speak, please use the raise hand feature. I see no one.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to have a voice on this application? Seeing none. How about committee? Any questions or comments from committee? Okay, seeing none, we'll read the motion. Moved by Duncan McGregor, seconded by Lynn Clickus. In making the decision upon this application, the committee considered whether or not the permission requested was minor and desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure, and that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan will be maintained, or in the case of a change in the use of property which is lawfully non-conforming under the bylaw, as to whether or not this application has met the requirements of subsection 45(2) of the Planning Act, concur in the following decision and reasons for decision. The permission application A0823, property located at part of lot 13 and part of lot 14, concession 6, part 1, 3, 6, and 9 in the geographic township of Kennebec, 1176 Hummingbird Lane, to allow for a 6.69 meter squared, 72 feet squared addition that will not encroach further into the water body setback. Also to expand existing deck from 35.67 meters squared, 384 feet squared to 62.4 meters squared to 672 feet squared, which will reduce the current water body setback from 19.38 meters to 17.9 meters and construct a new 10.8 meter squared, 116 feet squared deck and stairs to replace existing stairs and landing be approved subject to the conditions and reasons noted in the planning report. And that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Time to build some decks. All right. Next, we have A1023 McCulloch and McLeod minor variance. Okay. Have a seat at the table, and we'll ask Jenny to report on this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for the construction of a boathouse with 2 bays versus 1 bay. So the bylaw says one single bay, single story boathouse is permitted per property. Currently, this property has 2 single story, single bay boathouses. One of them has an attached deck, one of them does not. So on here, the one that is where's my thing is? One that is number 1 over here, that is one of the boathouses. The other existing boathouse is number 4, and the attached deck is number 5 on this drawing. So this application is to remove numbers 1, 4, and 5 and reconstruct it, reconstruct both of them as one single story 2 bay boathouse with a deck attached that will have a slightly smaller footprint than the existing deck that is attached to the 1 single bay boathouse. This property is in Eagle Lake, which is an at capacity lake trout lake. So shoreline vegetation and limiting impact on fish habitat is something that is of a concern to this lake, and why they're looking at doing that. And that's one of the reasons that boathouses are limited to a certain size and certain height and 1 per property rather than multiples like you see here. However, I mean, as an island, a boathouse of some sort is probably fairly useful as they have no other way to get to the property than in a boat. So the plan submitted with this did make it appear that there was a second story. It's more of a vaulted ceiling, and they have what are, I guess, called attic trusses. I had a conversation with the chief building official on this. So they're trusses that instead of just being full crosses, the center portion has been reinforced so that there is a sort of 5-foot high area down the center where you are going to be able to have storage. So their intent is this has some outside stairs and ramps to make it easier to get. I believe they have some kayaks or canoes that they would like to also be able to store. So while it has what looks like could be an upper level, it's not actually an upper level. It doesn't meet the head height requirements or the wall height requirements to be a storage area. It's just, as I said, I guess they're called attic trusses, and that's where they're going to have an upper storage area for the other non-motorized boats, as well as the 2 slips and 2 bays on the lower level. So the height of this boathouse does not exceed the height requirements for accessory structures. So there's a maximum height of an accessory structure. The height under boathouses says 1 story, so that's kind of subjective. There is no overall maximum height, but this is still under the maximum height that would be permitted for any other accessory structure, such as a garage or storage shed, things like that. And as I said, it is within that area. So there's also a maximum footprint permitted for a boathouse that of 80 square meters. This boathouse comes in at a total gross floor area of 77.5 square meters, I believe it was, but it is under the maximum gross floor area permitted. It's within the height requirements permitted. However, it has 2 doors on it. So that is not permitted because it is to be a single door, single bay. So if this had 1 large door on it, it would be considered a single bay boathouse. However, apparently that changes the construction and cost quite significantly to have 1 great big door and 1 great big opening versus having 2 small with that support structure in the middle. And I don't have an island or a boat or a boathouse, but I guess it does change it quite a bit. But it wouldn't change the gross floor area of the structure. It wouldn't change the height, the overall, the rest of the things to go with it would be the same. So they're not asking for an increase in floor area. They're not asking for an increase in height. It's just really to have 2 doors instead of 1. I assume it's like a garage. 1 great big door is always going to be more expensive and more structurally challenging than 2 smaller doors. This was circulated for review to Rideau Valley Conservation Authority, who conducted a site visit to the island June 15th of this year. They indicated no objections to the application as submitted. They did note they were favorable that they were going to consolidate the development along the shoreline to more of a single area on the northeast side of the island. Currently, there is a dock and boathouse on the other side, as well as one up on the north side where this is, and a floating dock. There's a number of different water access and developed areas. So the Conservation Authority was in favor of taking all of those and consolidating them into a single area, which does allow for not redevelopment, but renaturalization of the areas that were previously used for water access and for the other boathouse. And had offered within their comments if the applicants would like to work on that. They do have programs that they help select appropriate species and do some sort of planting plants and things like that. And they have people on staff that can help provide recommendations if that is something the applicants are interested in. They also included recommendations regarding the engineering of the boathouse structure, in addition to some flood control measures based on the levels of this lake. They have also stated that they would not support any habitable space in the boathouse, which is in keeping with the township zoning bylaw. And a permit is required from the Conservation Authority for this boathouse. So they can ensure that that upper storage area is in fact storage similar to we would have in the township. This was not circulated for review by the septic authority, as there is no habitable space permitted in a boathouse, and it's entirely constructed over the water. So it's not in proximity to any existing services on the property and is not anticipated to have any impact on that. There were no public comments received with regards to this application, and planning staff are recommending approval of this application as submitted, subject to the recommendations provided by Rideau Valley Conservation Authority, as noted in the planning report, and measures for construction, including silt fencing and other methods of controlling impact on the lake during the construction process.
Good. Okay. Do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you. Just briefly, thank you very much for your support and helping us as we've gone through this project. The other issue with the double doors is that with 1 big door in the long run, it just doesn't stand up as well as 2 doors. You got this massive door with massive hardware. I mean, the structural issues are one thing, but that's not the biggest issue. It's really just in the long run, makes a lot more sense having 2 doors. And because they own the whole island, there's like, I think 600 meters of shoreline or something. We're not bothering any neighbors. So, but basically it was presented well, and I leave it up to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone online who wishes to comment?
If there's anyone wishing to comment, please use the raise hand feature. I see no one, Madam Chair.
Okay. Anyone in person who would like to comment? Okay. Anyone from the committee with questions or comments? Duncan?
What mechanism are we using to ensure that the other boathouses are tore down after the construction of the new boathouse?
I believe the agent has some ways to address that. This is a permit more through the Conservation Authority than it is to the township. We need to approve the variance to permit the bays, but the actual construction and permitting is going to be through the Conservation Authority. The township doesn't issue the permits.
And we'll issue a building.
Okay, so township issues the demo permit.
Say that again into the mic.
We will issue a building permit for the boathouse. Conservation will also issue a permit. And we will issue a demo permit for the boathouse and stuff that's supposed to be removed.
That also helps to get the old ones off of your assessment and the new one added on. Okay. Duncan?
So just to follow up to that, so the condition that the other boathouses are tore down will be in the building permit?
They will apply for a building permit to build the new boathouse, and they will apply for a building permit to demolish the other boathouse. When Andy's out on inspections, he will see that the other one has been demolished and close the file. He probably will not close the new boathouse file or like make it as a finished product until the old one is torn down.
And also the Conservation Authority will be doing the same. So it'll be double checked.
Sorry, so the demolition permit will be issued, but where does the condition lie that they must tear down the additional boathouses? Is that with the Conservation Authority or is that with us?
That's what they're saying. We don't require them to tear it down if it's already existing in there, really. It's been there for years in a sense. We don't require it, but they're saying they will. If you want to put it in as a condition, as an extra condition, you can.
Yeah, so I'd like to see in a condition of this approval that we approve the minor variance with the condition that it's making the shoreline better by taking down two boathouses, not just approve a third boathouse without any conditions in place to tear the other two down.
So for sure, the one is going to be tore down and replaced, right? So they could still have two, but they're saying they're going to demolish it. So we can make it part of the condition that the second boathouse is demolished and the other boathouse will be demolished and replaced with a new boathouse. You can put that in the condition.
So the motion reads subject to the conditions and reasons noted in the planning report. So I guess the planning report would need to be changed.
I'm gonna say, yeah, so you can amend the resolution similar to we did for the right of way for the other one, that it's planning report. And then as amended to include a condition requiring the existing boathouses must be removed to permit the construction of the new 2-bay boathouse.
And that's perfectly fine with us. We're absolutely in favor of that. We have no issue with that at all.
Susan?
Let's try this. Okay. Just a question. No issue with the boathouse, but in reading the application, I noticed that there was a minor variance requested for the maximum dock area.
Yes, that was initially requested when I looked into the dock area. The proposed dock area actually is about a half square meter smaller than what is existing currently. So while it is larger than the 27 square meters that would be permitted if it was a new dock, they already have a dock of that size. And so the reconstruction will actually slightly reduce it, even though it's more than if it was a new one. They'd put it in because they weren't sure if they would need that approval.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we dotted our I's and crossed our T's. So thank you.
Yes, we don't want to have to come back and adjust. Once through this process is enough, right? Okay, I'm going to, did I read this already? No? Okay, all right, we'll start at the beginning. Moved by Lynn and seconded by Duncan. In making the decision upon this application, the committee considered whether or not the minor variance requested was minor and desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure, and that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan will be maintained, or in case of a change in the use of property which is lawfully non-conforming under the bylaw, as to whether or not this application has met the requirements of subsection 45(2) of the Planning Act, concur in the following decision and reasons for decision. The minor variance application A1023 McCullough and McLeod property located at part of lot 27, part of lot 28, concession 2 in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook, 380 Eagle Lake, Ensamore Island, to allow for a 2-bay boathouse be approved, subject to the conditions and reasons noted in the planning report, and amended to include a condition to demolish one boathouse and replace second boathouse with the new boathouse. And that the secretary treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, or any other person or public body prescribed. So that covers what you were concerned about. Okay. All those, any other questions or comments? Okay. Oh, Danny?
I'm just curious, is this a floating boathouse or is it actually pinned or? A floating boathouse or is it pinned?
It'll have a proper structure underneath it. We've engaged Groundworks Engineering, who've done a lot of docks and boathouses. And they're going to, I don't really understand that part. I'm designing what's above the water, but they're putting a steel structure, and they certainly know they'll spell out all the conditions to make it acceptable for the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority and the building department.
Okay. All right. No other questions? All those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, is there anything else to come before the meeting tonight? Seeing none, moved by Lynn and seconded by Duncan that this meeting be adjourned until 4 p.m. August the 10th, 2023, virtually and in person at Oso Hall, Sharbot Lake.
Can we change that to 6?
You did
No.
change the notices?
Yeah.
Okay, to 6 p.m. Okay, so all those in favor of adjourning? Carried. 5:25 on the dot.